Part 5. And now, Dr. Farquhar responds to further questions you may be interested in.
Sarah, settling children can be a really difficult task for parents. Some children can come into a centre and be fine and be happy to leave their parents, and some children just have a really difficult time. What can parents and staff do to make that transition easier?
Well, before starting at a centre or being left with a nanny, I would suggest to parents that they talk with their child heaps about what's going to happen and about how exciting it's going to be. You want to excite the child and make it, like it's going to be a really pleasurable thing that's going to happen. Also, lots of small familiarisation visits can really help too, for the child to feel like, well, this is going to be a good place for them, or these are going to be good people to be with. It can be difficult for parents to know what to do when their child gets clingy. And in some services it's a problem if there's no one that the parent feels that they can leave their child with. In situations like this, parents need to be proactive, to approach a staff member and to say, look, can I leave my child with you? And will you be the person to play with my child as I'm leaving? Staff should offer to call parents to let them know how their child is getting along. Sometimes a simple wave out the window of the preschool can give parents that reassurance that their child has settled down. And, if the child doesn't settle down, then the parent will know that the staff will contact them immediately. So it's good if the staff will talk with the parents about, well, what are we going to do to let you know, to communicate as to what is happening for your child. A strategy that I've seen work really well is for children to take along something special from home. It might be a pet rabbit or some home baking, and instantly that helps them to feel and to become part of the group, because they'll get attention from the other children, and taking along something special from home can really help to break the ice for a child.
If a child gets hurt, say from an accident, what would you expect from the staff in terms of caring for the child and reporting to parents?
Well, immediately I would expect the staff member to go straight to the child, tend to the child's needs, give the child a cuddle, check out how serious the accident is. If it's a serious accident, then medical help should be called straight away, and the parents should be informed straight away. If the accident's of a more minor nature, I would suggest, maybe if it's a bump or a scratch, cuddles, a cold compress, some small first aid might be needed, and the child's supported to get back into some activities and to be happy again. And when the parents arrive later to pick up their child, the parents should be informed that day about the minor accident, and it should be recorded in a book at the centre.
Sarah, my question is about childcare for when I go back to work. Previously, for my older daughter, she was cared for at a crèche, and I specifically picked a crèche because I was concerned that having either a nanny at home or an in-home caregiver, that she would become more attached to her caregiver, being with the caregiver all day, than me. And since then, and Joshua coming along, I've now looked into it a bit more, and I'm thinking a single caregiver might be more suitable in terms of one-to-one care for him, but I'm still concerned about that attachment to the caregiver more than being attached to myself. What's your opinion on that?
I would only be worried if you and baby hadn't had time to be together and to form a bond to start with. Young children can form secondary attachments, and that's okay. It doesn't threaten or change baby's attachment to you. And it can be a good indication that the caregiving arrangement is going well, that baby's getting the affection and the contact and the interaction that he needs if he's forming an attachment to his caregiver. Yes, a single caregiver or nanny could be very suitable, and Joshua could be cared for at home, making it easier for both you and for him. A crèche or preschool could be more affordable, but my first criteria in selecting a crèche would be if there is a staff member who relates really well with Joshua and who will be responsible for Joshua's care and well-being.
Through the eyes of a parent with a baby, how can a parent be assured that there's going to be linkages between what happens at home and what happens at the centre.
What can really help is if there is a teacher who is allocated to be your baby's special person, because that's important. It's so that you have someone that you can go to and so that you know who it is that is responsible for your baby. And it allows the building up of a really neat relationship between you so that you can talk about anything. You know, sometimes parents have to make it happen. They have to approach the staff and discuss what happens within the centre, the day-to-day things and what happens at home. Because sometimes staff are just too busy. They've got lots of children to care for and to work with. Sometimes staff are shy of parents, especially, you know, if they haven't had children of their own. And sometimes staff just don't know what to say to parents. So it really is up to parents also to chat with the staff and to not be afraid to do so. What's often not done but can be very valuable is if the special person who's allocated to your baby visits you at home and gets to know your family as well, and you know what the kinds of things that your baby does at home.
Sarah, as a dad at home with a couple of boys, just wondering if you can tell me what can early childhood centres do to encourage me like myself to become more involved and feel more comfortable in a women-dominated environment.
Well, in all communications with parents, they must address both mums and dads. And it's a good idea too if they ask dads, well, what special interests or skills would you like to bring in and share with the children? So dads get a message that they are welcome to come in and that they can share what they know and what they're interested in with the children. Staff can also ask dads how they would like to be involved and what changes are needed to encourage more dads in. It is disappointing that an outdated view on the roles of men and women is reflected in the early childhood services that employ staff. Because dads are much more likely to feel comfortable and be involved when there are men on the staff.
Children are all very different and unique individuals. They develop at different rates. They do their own thing. They have their own interests and passions and wants and needs. How can you be sure a centre will, or a service will, develop a program for that particular child instead of just assuming they are a child?
Well, I'm sorry that parents can't be sure of this. You know, ideally, the program should fit around the child, but we see so often the child having to fit into the program. The child is just one of many within the group. What I like to see is adults identifying what the children can do and planning, you know, for the next steps in their learning. And one way that adults can really support kids' learning is to get, in group situations, is to get the children together who are of similar ability or level in a particular thing and to do the activity together as a group so the children can be learning from each other and constructing their knowledge and their understanding alongside the adult. But there are some exceptions, and you'll see this in services that are grounded in a belief that children can self-direct their own learning. And in these services, you'll find, the program fitting around the child and the child being helped to learn to the best of their ability. Given the right guidance and support by the adults and through the appropriate selection of materials and activities that have just the right amount of challenge for the children, you'll find that children's learning outcomes will be optimised, and that's what we want for children, isn't it?
Sarah, we know that breastfeeding is really important for both infants and their mothers. It's so much more than just about nutrition. It's about attachment and bonding and connectedness to their mothers. So, Sarah, what can early childhood centres do to encourage and support mothers to continue with their breastfeeding once their children are in childcare?
Gosh, it is very important, but there's no requirement for centres to have a policy that states that they support breastfeeding or that outlines how they will support breastfeeding. And it's not good to see mums deciding to wean their babies before starting in childcare. It's not good to see mums running out to the car to hide away to do their breastfeeding because they think that they can't do it within the service, or busily expressing enough milk to put in the freezer before arriving in the morning so that there is some breast milk available for the staff to give to the baby during the day. So really what we need to be seeing within early childhood centres, so mums don't need to be doing these things, are staff who show that breastfeeding's not a problem, that it's not an issue. Staff who are comfortable with mum's breastfeeding in the service and being seen to be breastfeeding. There needs to be within the environment a place where mums can go if they want some privacy, or if the baby needs a quiet space because baby's easily distractible during feeding. And that place, could have cushions, an armchair, perhaps some fresh drinking water for mum, some toys for other siblings to play with. Telling parents at the time of enrolment that the centre supports breastfeeding is really important to make sure that mums don't give up breastfeeding before they start at the centre.
Now, Sarah, we know that qualifications, or teacher qualifications, are important for the quality of an early childhood service, but I think there are other aspects that are also important, and I wonder if you'd like to comment on that.
It is a myth. We say that teacher qualification is important for quality because that is what we are told by policymakers and by those with a vested interest. But actually, from the perspective of children and parents, it's not the type of qualification that is important, but how good the person is at their job. A qualification in teaching can give some certainty, though, that a person who is not the child's parent or the primary caregiver has a particular set of skills and knowledge. I see the qualification that staff hold as being important for setting standards, whereas quality is really about what staff do. It's about children's experiences, and it's about the match between home and service for the children.
Sarah, the minimum legal requirement for space in early childhood centres makes it quite difficult to avoid an environment which is noisy and overcrowded and quite stressful.
Yes.
I'm just wondering what advice you could give to parents about those concerns.
Well, first I'd say to weigh up how many hours your child will be in the centre against how crowded the centre feels. The deciding factor would be whether or not you as an adult would feel happy being in that environment for that number of hours, or would you start to feel claustrophobic? Would you find it too noisy? Would you find it stressful? Would other people start to get on your nerves? If a centre's got well-designed space, it can feel like going to someone's home for the day, and, that's the way it should feel.
If I, as a parent, had a child who was gifted in a particular area or had some talents, what could I expect a centre to do to cater for her or him?
Expect the staff to recognise this and really work for the child. If they give excuses such as, well, the child can only read because the parents are pushy, or we believe that all children should be treated the same and we don't do anything differently for the children, these kind of excuses, will suggest to you that the staff won't be able to provide an optimal learning environment for the child who has special gifts or talents. In centres that recognise children who are talented or who have special gifts, you'll see staff following up on children's interests. You'll see them extending children's interests. You'll see them providing materials and encouragement and lots of support. And you'll also see them creating plenty of opportunities for children to further what they are interested in and particularly good at.
Everything isn't going to be nice all of the time. So if a child is the victim of another child's aggressive behaviour, what should parents or staff be doing?
Well, the victim will need a cuddle at the very least. And, as you know, young children often don't have the skills to be able to know how to deal with aggressive behaviour. It's something that they might not have encountered before. So an occasion like this presents an opportunity to talk with the victim about, well, what can he or she do should this happen again, and teach simple strategies such as, putting your hand up and saying, stop. Now, if a parent's picked up that their child has been a victim of another child's aggressive behaviour, I think it's really important for the parents to, as soon as possible, talk with the staff at the centre about this so that the staff know what is going on and what is happening, and to ask the staff what are they doing to protect their child. And the parents of the aggressive child and the staff need to actually get together and talk about, well, what is it that is triggering this aggressive behaviour? And they need to think about, well, what can we do to help the child who is showing aggression? How can we help to reduce the possibility that this kind of negative behaviour is going to occur? And how can we support the child to show more positive behaviour, and together to work out some strategies so that they are consistent?
Sarah, it's often a difficulty when parents arrive at a childcare facility and their child is obviously not well. How teaching staff handle this is quite a matter of, diplomacy. Would you agree that having a really robust policy on sick children would be the best way to tackle that for a centre?
All centres need to have a carefully worded policy and to make this available to parents when first enrolling their child. Then later, if the situation arises that, a child's sick, the parent has to be at work, then the parent will know what the centre's policy is and know not to drop their sick child off. Because children are in close proximity to each other in a centre, the first responsibility of the staff must be to protect the health of all the children. With some diseases like conjunctivitis, a child might otherwise appear well, so it's still important for the policy to be in place and for staff to have a good knowledge about young children's health and diseases so that they can identify any potential health issues and talk with parents about these. Staff should also show understanding and support parents who have sick children, because often these parents are stressed. They're stressed about their child being sick and they can be stressed about missing time off work. So it's important that staff show empathy.
Sarah, we know that roughly 43% of parents will look to the early childhood people for advice around parenting. How can we ensure